There's this incredibly complex, unseen system working 24/7 just to keep your home running smoothly. It's a whole world hidden behind your walls, under your floors, and it has a pretty fascinating story to tell. So let's dive in.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What's the single most vital, hardworking system in your entire home that if it's doing its job right, you pretty much never even think about?
You got it. It's the plumbing. It's this massive, intricate network of pipes and drains delivering clean water and taking waste away, all completely silent and out of sight. But what happens when that silent system is put under some serious stress? To figure that out, we're going to zero in on one specific place, Santa Clarita, California. Think of it as a case study, a place where we can see what happens when these hidden systems get pushed to their absolute limits by the very environment they're built in. And that really brings us to the core mystery here, doesn't it? What is it about this one valley, this one high desert spot, that creates a perfect storm for plumbing problems? What forces are at play that are waging a constant, invisible war on the pipes in every single house? To crack this case, we have to look at the environment itself. And well, it turns out there are three main culprits, three natural forces in this area that are constantly attacking the plumbing. Let's break them down one by one. So, culprit number one, the climate. Santa Clarita is in the high desert, and that means scorching hot summers. We're talking over 100 degrees, and then winters where it can actually drop below freezing at night.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. That wild temperature swing translates directly into physical stress. Your pipes, metal, plastic, doesn't matter, are always expanding in the heat and shrinking in the cold, day in, day out. That relentless cycle just hammers the joints, it causes tiny stress fractures in older copper pipes, and yeah, it dramatically ramps up the risk of a catastrophic burst pipe during a sudden freeze.
All right, on to culprit number two. This is something you can't even see, but it's flowing through the pipes every single day. We're talking about hard water. The water supply here comes from the Santa Clara River watershed, and it is just loaded with minerals like calcium and magnesium. And this chart just perfectly illustrates the fallout. Those minerals, they don't just pass through, they stick to the inside of everything, forming this rock-hard crust we call scale. And as you can see, this one thing is a huge troublemaker. It slowly but surely chokes off water flow, it kills the efficiency of your appliances, makes your fixtures fail way too early, and it creates the perfect foundation for some truly nasty clogs. And that brings us to our third and final culprit, the very ground the houses are sitting on. A huge part of the valley is made up of what's called expansive clay soil. Now, this isn't just regular dirt. Think of it like a giant, powerful sponge. When it gets wet, it swells up with incredible force, and when it dries out, it shrinks and cracks. Just imagine the immense, slow-moving pressure that puts on any pipe buried in it, constantly squeezing and shifting them, year after year after year. So you take those three environmental attacks, right? Temperature, water, and soil. And then you layer this on top. Santa Clarita grew in phases, and each building boom used different materials. So you end up with this patchwork quilt of plumbing. 70s steel pipes, 80s copper, modern PEX. And each one reacts to those harsh conditions in its own uniquely problematic way.
So we've got our culprits: temperature, water, soil. Now let's look at the crime scene. What does this three-pronged assault actually look like for the people who live there? What are the common headaches that keep popping up?
This one is a huge deal, especially in the older homes. A slab leak is exactly what it sounds like. A pipe buried deep under the concrete foundation of your house finally gives up. The signs are super subtle at first. Maybe a weirdly warm spot on your floor, or you hear water running when everything's off, or maybe you just get a water bill that's suddenly through the roof. It's the direct result of that shifting clay soil and the hard water corrosion working together as a team.
And water heaters? Oh man, they take an absolute beating out here. A typical one might last 8 to 12 years, but these conditions can cut that lifespan way down. And this chart shows you why. That hard water sediment is by far the biggest killer. It builds up as a thick, rocky layer at the bottom of the tank, basically insulating the water from the flame. So the unit has to work way harder just to do its job, until it just burns itself out. And then, of course, there are the invaders from the outside. This quote just nails it. Tree roots are absolutely relentless. They can sense the water and nutrients in a sewer line from yards away, and they'll force their way in through the tiniest little crack. Once they're inside, they just keep growing until you have a total blockage. And trust me, that leads to one of the worst plumbing nightmares imaginable. Okay, so the problems are obviously super complex, right? They're layered.
That means the fixes can't be simple either. To solve these kinds of issues, you need deep, specialized local knowledge. So let's take a look at how the pros actually handle this unique storm of challenges.
Look, a real pro isn't just guessing. It's a methodical, step-by-step process. It all starts with that first call, just to understand what's happening. Then comes the really critical part, a precise diagnosis to find the root cause, not just the symptom. And crucially, nothing gets fixed until you, the homeowner, approve it. And only then does the actual repair and some serious testing begin.
Take a look at this number. Just let it sink in for a second. 2,000. That's roughly how many different parts and pieces a fully stocked professional service truck might be carrying when it rolls up to your house.
But it's not just about having a mountain of parts. It's about having the right parts and, maybe even more importantly, the right high-tech tools. We're talking little cameras that can send right down inside your pipes, thermal imagers to spot a hidden leak behind a wall without tearing it open, even electronic detectors that can pinpoint the exact spot of a slab leak. It's all about finding the problem fast and accurately. And it all comes down to choosing the right solution. Take a clogged drain. A snake is basically just a cable that punches a hole through the middle of the clog. But hydrojetting, that's a whole other level. It uses incredibly high-pressure water to scour the entire inside of the pipe clean, blasting away all that scale and root buildup. One is a Band-Aid, the other is a real long-term fix.
And you know, for some of those really old failing systems, the only long-term answer is to replace all the pipes. The two big choices today are PEX, which is this flexible material that's awesome because it resists scale and doesn't burst if it freezes, and traditional copper, which is super durable but, as we know, can have issues with this area's hard water. Choosing the right one really depends on the specific house.
Okay, so we've just gone super deep into one very specific valley in California. But here's the thing. The lesson here is universal. We've seen how climate, geology, and just the history of a place all come together to create this unique set of challenges, which, of course, brings us right back to you and your home.
So here's what I want you to walk away with. Every single home has its own hidden story. It's a story that's written by its age, by the specific ground it's built on, and by the unique environmental forces that are working on it every single day. The case of Santa Clarita just peels back the curtain and shows us how important it is to learn how to read that story. So the final question I'll leave you with is, do you know yours?